Okay, that's it. It's 2 o'clock and we've got to start because we have got a packed program this afternoon. I am so thrilled to be having the privilege of introducing the Institute of Health and Social Care Management's Children and Young People's Conference. This is long overdue, and I'm really thrilled with the program that I must pay tribute to Jade Maloney, our operations manager here at the Institute, for preparing. There's no wonder there's, I think, nearly 100 of you registered for this. It's an absolute blockbuster of content and opinion and insight, I think, that we're going to be in for. My name is John Wilkes, those of you who've not met me before, and I have the privilege of being Chief Executive of the Institute of Health and Social Care Management, an institute, by the way, that was celebrating its 46th birthday on the day that the NHS was founded in 1948. So there you go. If you think the NHS is old, you want to look into the archives of the institute that you're all proud and privileged to belong to. And I think it's interesting, on the day that is the birthday of the NHS, it's worth pointing out and reminding you all, if you didn't already know, that the very first person to be treated by the NHS in 1948, Sylvia Diggory, age 13. There we are. So the NHS can trace its absolute origin back to looking after children and young people properly. Today, well, wow, what a sequence, a series, a catalogue of challenges and obstacles all of you face if you're in the business of looking after children and young people in any capacity, be that in the acute setting, primary care, mental health, or of course across social services and social care. This is an immensely challenging time. You're going to hear from people as we go along who talk to you about some of the constraints and challenges that they face on a daily basis, but there can be no doubt that the sort of tsunami, if I can call it that, of demand on children's young people's services, particularly driven by social media problems, personal body image problems, diet and so on problems. These are profound, growing, and the extent to which our NHS and social care, for that matter, is able to address them and deal with them properly is going to be something I'm interested to learn more about today. I'm thrilled to say that our first guest today, I'm just going to bring up this blurb here because I need to introduce you properly, Yvonne. We have Yvonne Newbold, and Yvonne is an MBE, and she's founder of Newbold Hope and the author of the Special Parents Handbook. She's going to start us off today with a keynote address called Mind Your P's, looking at people, partnership, and parents. Yvonne, I'm not going to steal any of your thunder. You'll be delighted to learn. Instead, I'm simply going to hand over to you. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody who's in the audience today for coming along in such numbers. It's really reassuring that there's so much interest in this topic. Yvonne, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and for such a lovely introduction too, John. It's an absolute honour and privilege to be here today. I'm so pleased that I've been invited to give the keynote. Just bear with me while I start sharing slides. Here we are. As John said, my name's Yvonne Newbold, and I'm the founder of a parent-led organisation called Newbold Hope that supports parents and professionals with children where there are extreme challenging behaviours, which can also sometimes include actual physical violence that can cause injuries to other family members or people in the wider community. Now, I'd first of all like to introduce you to Toby. He can't be with us today, but he is the reason behind absolutely everything we do at Newbold Hope. He's my son, he's 29, and let me tell you a little bit more about him. He's multi-talented. He has a hilariously funny sense of humour, very slapstick. He's incredibly sociable. He blows the best kisses in the world. And if he likes you at a hospital appointment, he will be blowing kisses to you all the way back to the car. He's completely non-verbal, but that doesn't stop him being incredibly persuasive. He loves playing hide and seek, and he always wins. He adores Mr. Tumble. He cheats outrageously at Pin the Tail on the Donkey. He's the very best pickpocket I've ever met, because he'll have your mobile phone off you in a jiffy to see if you've got any secret Mr. Tumble episode he doesn't know anything about. Now, I've said here he's a secret anarchist. I don't think there's much of a secret about it anymore. I think he's just an out-and-out anarchist, actually. And he is our absolute king of birthdays and families, of birthdays and Christmas and our family. However, he's also got complex medical needs and disabilities. He has a severe intellectual disability. He functions at around the equivalent level of a mainstream 18-month to 2-year-old. He's autistic. He can't chew. He has an impaired swallow mechanism. He's non-verbal. He's vision impaired, hearing impaired, impaired mobility. He has a history of extreme challenging behaviours. He also has pica, which means everything goes in his mouth, which, when you've got the swallowing and chewing issues that he has, can be life-threatening. And he's the only person in the world with whatever syndrome he actually has. Healthcare appointments, wherever they take place, should be the safest place for Toby, but they're not. Hospital appointments, or even worse, hospital admissions, fill me with dread and terror. We know that people with an intellectual disability are at a much higher risk of a preventable death in hospital. In the UK alone, this happens to people like Toby 3 times every single day. And I've seen how easily and almost casually it can happen, because Toby has so often come far too close to being one of them. Toby's incredibly hospital savvy. He spent 3/4 of his first 7 years in hospital with 38 emergency admissions, some of them lasting over 8 months. Now, that means when he's in a hospital or a healthcare environment, he can be incredibly noisy. He knows something about hospitals that you probably don't. You know those lovely long corridors? Did you know that if you shout at the top of your voice, it echoes all the way down the corridor? Well, you can imagine how much tension that brings us. He's very playful, he's very boisterous, he's chaotic, he's disruptive, he's mischievous. He needs constant entertainment. He's funny, he's confident, and he thinks he owns the whole place. He also could become very frightened if he doesn't understand something. And when that happens, there is always a risk that his behaviour could escalate and somebody could get hurt. Oops, it's not moving. Oops. Oh, hold on. Sorry about that. Right, here we are. We've spent so much time at healthcare appointments, yet instead of being welcomed, he and I more often feel judged, disapproved of. We're often given a wide berth. We see those eyes rolling, and that's not just from other patients, it's often from staff too. Impatient sighs, pursed lips, or we're stared at. There are real risks to Toby at appointments when nobody listens. There's seldom any attempt at communicating with him himself, so he becomes frightened. When he becomes frightened, he can develop challenging behaviour, which can put staff, other patients, and Toby himself at huge risk. Unless you can build trust with Toby, nothing is going to work. Not listening and not believing family has caused wrong decisions to be made more times than I can remember. Offering food and drink poses significant risks of choking. Not taking on board Toby's complete lack of understanding danger can cause all sorts of issues as well. Now, if he's an inpatient, we've got all of those risks, plus, as well as that, a lack of supervision. There's a risk of him wandering. He loves lifts. At our local hospital, the front door leads right out onto a main road. If you blink and take your eye off him, he could be down and out on that road. There's a risk of him pulling out his own cannulas. He's actually sometimes pulled out other patients' cannulas. He's hit out and hurt other patients in beds next to him. There's a risk of him hurting himself. There's a risk of him hurting staff. If after meal times, trays of food and drink are left on other patients' bed tables within reach, he could grab them and he can choke. There's a risk of him falling or developing such severe distress and fear. And there's also always an inability of staff to be able to communicate with him. One of the issues is that Toby can go downhill incredibly quickly in the blink of an eye. When you see Toby, perhaps in A&E or at the GP service, and he looks like the Toby version on the right, and you've never met him before, you might not be able to understand that the bright, smiley, loud, gregarious, outgoing chap on the left-hand side is who Toby really is. Some clinicians simply can't get past those words, intellectual disability, and assume that that version of him, when the light has gone completely out from behind the eyes, is his baseline. And they assume that he's always that subdued. Now, the thing is, Toby won't be able to change. He's never going to be able to make things easier for you guys to treat him. But NHS staff can change. You can learn to meet Toby where he is and accept him for who he is. Why doesn't it always happen? I think part of that is because we are prioritising the wrong things. We're looking at the P's, and it's all about policies, procedures, pathways, paperwork, protocol, politics, instead of what really matters, people. Toby is far more than a line on a spreadsheet, and so is everybody else. The other thing, I think, is it's also about valuing family wisdom. We are experts too. You're an expert in health. I'm an expert in Toby. When we work together, we can make magic happen. When we're fobbed off or marginalised, our child will be at risk of significantly poorer outcomes. Thank you for being here today and for listening to me. It's a complete honour and privilege to be invited to join you today as the keynote speaker. However, I really wish people had listened to me all those years ago when sometimes Toby's life depended on it. Today, all over the country, there are thousands of families in despair because they're not being listened to and properly included in the decisions being taken around their son or daughter's care. Today, the NHS celebrates its 75th birthday. It's a great day to take stock and to pledge to do things even better. Please, can one of those improvements be to really listen and learn from, and then work together with families like mine? Oops. Oh, where are we? There we are. I now run Newbold Hope. Everything we do is informed by lived experience, and all our material is co-produced with families who are living with extreme challenging behaviour every day. We work with parents and professionals to enable them to develop the knowledge, the skills and the confidence to be able to help send children and young people to significantly reduce violent, difficult or dangerous behaviour, or to move away from it completely. Due to our work, we now know of nearly 4,000 families who are able to look forward to a future of real promise, instead of the fear of their child one day entering the criminal justice system as a young adult or locked away in psychiatric care when they reach adulthood. We've had quite an impact with this work. 99% of people who've attended our training would recommend it to other parents. 96% of parents who've attended our training report an increased confidence regarding their parenting skills. And we receive about 10 thank you messages from families every single day. If you or your team or any parents you know need this sort of help, please, please get in touch. We can support this community and the staff who care for them as well. Now, when things have gone incredibly well in Toby's healthcare, it's always because somebody cared, somebody listened, and then that somebody was prepared to go that extra mile. I know that you will always try to be that person. I know that you will always do whatever you can to keep Toby safe and thousands of others like him. As a mother, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and to say, absolutely, you rock. Thank you. So I think it's our questions, isn't it, John? Just going to stop sharing.
We can certainly do some questions, Yvonne. Thank you for that. I think it's always great to start these things with experiential learning experiences, you know, where you just make it real from the outset, that when any of us are now talking during this Children and Young People's conference event, you know, we're doing it from the point of view of the patient first and working backwards. I think that's a great principle for us to adopt. So would anybody like to ask Yvonne a question at all, please? Just so that you're aware, she is a founding member of the NHS Assembly and earned the National Learning Disabilities and Autism Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018. So this is a lady who profoundly knows what she's talking about. So please feel free.
Thank you, John. Silence. I'm happy to fill the time telling you a couple of other stories if that's easier.
If I may,
but
Yvonne, do you mind if I ask you a question? Just there may be some others
Please do.
who've got something to ask, but they're kind of just preparing their ground a little bit more. So what I'd like to know is, given that your son is, I think you said 21, is that right? 27.
No, he's 29.
29 now. Okay.
29 now. Yes.
So what advances hopefully would you record in the way that the NHS and social care has engaged with you during those 29 years of his life? Have you seen anything that you would point at and say, actually, that's better now than it was when he was a newborn? What would you point at anything?
I think generally societal attitudes towards disability have massively moved forward. We're nowhere near where we need to be yet, but I remember when Toby was very little, it was very much on the cards that he wasn't going to survive. We were told again and again that he probably wouldn't survive past early childhood. But then I worried that if he did, who would be kind to a dribbling, elderly, middle-aged man who couldn't talk and couldn't really contribute fully? I thought he'd be written off. And actually, wherever he goes, he gets smiles. I mean, it might be those kisses he blows, I don't know. But society as a whole has moved hugely. And I think that is reflected in a lot of the care and a lot of the both social care and NHS care. However, I have been part of all sorts of discussions and boards and groups and policies and let's change this virtually since Toby was born. And it's really depressing to hear the same old promises again, that lessons will be learned and yes, we'll do things differently. And actually, a lot of the frustrations are still there. One big thing, and this isn't going to be popular with you guys, but I think it's important to actually say it. I dreaded moving into adult care with Toby, because I knew, and mostly we loved everyone we worked with throughout in children's services. And his transition was a nightmare. It all fell apart. But now we've been in adult services 10 years, there is a subtle difference. Nobody ever looks at me and blames me for Toby's behaviour. And that makes such a huge difference. And the thing is, it never was my fault. It was never Toby's fault. His behaviour, I now understand, was entirely due to his high level of anxiety and the fact that behaviour is a form of communication. But in children's services, parents sadly still get judged because we have this societal sort of expectation that if you're a good parent, your children will behave beautifully. But when it comes to neurodiversity, disability, additional needs, that's not always the case. So does that answer your question, John? Sorry. If it, I think I saw.
That's fine. We've got
Thank you.
We've got Jane who's got a hand up. We'll bring Jane in if you'd like to ask your question, and then we've got a question from Anika in the chat, but we'll let Jane go first. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
We can't hear you, unfortunately, Jane. Your microphone.
Hi, Jane.
Might be.
I was really going for it then as well.
There you go.
I would just say thanks for sharing your story. One of the things that we try and do here, so I work for BCU Health Board up in North Wales, and we've recently done a really big piece of work around children's rights and trying to value, particularly around listening to the voice of a child. Now, obviously, it's sometimes difficult if the child is non-verbal and actually being able to kind of advocate that child right within our services. So we do a lot of work around children's rights, but I was wondering whether there was anything that you could advise that I suppose that we could add into our training about understanding communication with somebody who's non-verbal from a rights-based approach. Is there anything that you could share? Sorry, that might be a bit of a complicated question, but
yeah, the thing is, I think when somebody has the sort of profound learning disability that Toby has, coupled with being non-verbal, there are ways that you can include them, but it's got to be personalised and it's got to be worked out with Toby. For instance, Toby knows his own mind. And if you show him 2 photos, he loves photos. If you show him 2 photos, he'll be able to choose. So, if you wanted to find out the best nurse in that team that he liked the best, he's got no shame. He'll tell you exactly. He can point, he can make it very clear what he wants. He can turn his head, he can make happy noises or sad noises. I mean, it's quite funny. Where he lives at the moment, he's in charge of the staff photo board. But every shift, all his favourite people are on. And if there's somebody that he had a bit of a falling out with yesterday, their photo is firmly taken off. But it doesn't matter. They still, he is very, very into visuals, videos. The other thing that I've done with him to help him understand things is I've made PowerPoint slides and then videoed them so that he loves videos. He's very fixated with videos. And I tell you what I wish, if every single hospital department had photos on their websites that parents like me could download as to the consultant team, the nursing team, the receptionist team, what the waiting room looks like, what the clinic room looks like. I could, a week beforehand, put all of those things on as PowerPoint, video it, make it into a little video with me talking over in the background, a voice he knows and understands. And it would make a huge difference. So it's about basically, it takes a lot of time and takes a lot of thought. And you've often got to think outside the box. Does that help, Jane?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah, that I'll take that back.
Perfect, Jane. Thank you. Good answer as well.
Good luck with that. Thank you.
Real quick, if you don't mind, Yvonne, because I want to move on to the next session. But Anika said, how do you think schools can improve with helping make things better?
Oh, don't get me started. I don't think that can be something I can answer quickly.
Well, perhaps
I am running a webinar. Yeah, well, if I'm invited, yes, later on today, yes, definitely. Thank you. I'm running a session tomorrow night all about school attendance and when kids can't turn up, where we'll be covering a lot of that. If anybody wants to join in with that one, let me know.